There's something that quietly shapes every part of your business, whether you realize it or not. For a long time, I thought momentum would come from doing things better or louder or just sticking it out long enough for it to finally click. What actually changed everything for me was a shift in how I saw myself as a business owner before anyone ever decided to work with me. And it wasn't dramatic, it was quite subtle, but once it clicked, I couldn't unsee it. And I finally understood myself and where I stood in the industry. There was a long stretch where my business looked fine on paper. I was booking, I had clients, I wasn't necessarily failing, but it always felt like I was holding my breath a little bit. Like if I slowed down or took my foot off the gas, things might fall apart. And it's a feeling that I couldn't get rid of. It just always felt like I had to be all out or it was gonna be a mess. Every new inquiry felt important in a way that was kind of exhausting. Like, I need this person and I am holding my breath until they book. And if they don't, I feel devastated. And it's not actually because I needed every client, but because I didn't fully trust my system or trust myself. I don't think I realized how much mental energy that was taking up until later on. Back then, I assumed the problem was execution. I thought maybe I needed to post more consistently, explain my offers more clearly, or just get better at talking about what I do, or get better at doing what I did. And so that I would feel more confident about it. And none of that was necessarily wrong. It just wasn't the core issue. Because even when I improved those things, the underlying feeling didn't really go away. That was my first clue that this wasn't a tactic problem. It was something so much deeper. What I didn't have language for at the time was certainty. Not confidence in a loud way, just an internal subtleness about who I was, what my work was, who my work was for, and really why it all mattered. I was still leaving space for someone else to decide if it was enough. I was giving my clients or leads or potential clients, I was giving them too much say in how I then felt. And that shows up in really small ways. You start to over explain yourself, you soften your opinions, you adjust your pricing language, and you adjust how you pitch things, and you're constantly changing. And it just comes from not being fully decided, from not fully knowing who you are, from not feeling confident in this deeper part of yourself. I remember getting on discovery calls or Zoom calls and feeling like I really needed to read the room, really feel out the client. If someone felt hesitant, I'd instinctively try to reassure them. I would start to over explain. If someone asked about price, I would really start to act as if there's wiggle room or it's not set in stone. I don't know. Not because I didn't believe in the work, but because I hadn't fully anchored myself in it yet. From the outside, everything looked normal, but internally, I was scrambling. I was really just trying to figure out how to make this feel right and therefore make myself feel confident. But it was almost doing the opposite. The more that I over explained, the more that I was unsure, the more I really felt confused. And that's really tricky and creates a really different dynamic in your business. The shift started when I noticed that I was waiting for the right person to validate me, especially clients, waiting for a certain level of success to feel confident, waiting for external proof before fully owning my own perspective or my own journey or myself. Once I saw that, I couldn't ignore it because the people I admired weren't waiting, they had already decided. Even if they weren't at the top of their game or the most admired people, there was a confidence about them that seemed like they were great. They were amazing at what they did. And that was because I think they were just internally confident. They weren't trying to be picked. They were inviting people into something they had already believed in. One of the biggest changes came when I stopped trying to make my work make sense to everyone. I got clearer about who this actually serves, and just as importantly, who it doesn't serve. That clarity didn't make things smaller, it made things lighter. My messaging felt easier. My content felt steadier. My decisions felt less reactive. My work was better. I wasn't overthinking it. And I stopped worrying so much about being misunderstood, and I started to just own who I was. And I'm not saying that this is perfect. We still have self doubts. And when I say we, I don't mean to say put that on you, but I do. I'm human. I'm not perfect at this. Another shift, though, was in how I talked about my work. I stopped softening it all to make it feel comfortable for everyone. I started being okay turning away people. I stopped framing things like suggestions and started really coming across as the expert, the guy who knows what he's doing because I'm confident in what I'm doing and I believe in what I'm doing. I started speaking from a place that felt more grounded, not louder. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't trying to be aggressive. I just was so much more settled into myself, into my business. And I think people could feel that. I think people really got this gist of Austin is the expert. He does know what he's talking about. This is where the difference really showed up. People started coming in with trust and everything changed. Sales were easier. When I delivered something, there was trust built behind it so that there weren't as many revisions or there weren't changes. And I wasn't getting questions all the time. Everything just felt calmer. Decisions felt mutual instead of conditional. It wasn't about demand or being booked out, it was about the energy I was putting out and the relationships that I was building because again, I was seen as the one to be trusted and the expert to guide them. Things started from a grounded place instead of me trying to convince them place. My prices stopped feeling like something I needed to justify, and I wasn't waiting for the yes from the client to feel confident anymore. The confident actually came first. And ironically, that made the yes happen. If you're watching this and you think things are working but still feel heavier than they should, that doesn't mean that you're doing things all wrong. It just means you're on the edge of this shift. Decide what you believe. Who is this really for? Why does it matter? What do you believe? Like, what do you really believe about yourself? What do you believe about your business or your product or your service? To decide that your way of seeing things is enough to lead with. And once that happens, people don't need to be persuaded. They feel it. They truly do. It is truly an energy that comes through the camera, that comes through screens, and they trust it. And they choose you from a much more grounded place. You don't have to do anything with this right away. Just sit with it for a while. Really think about it. Process this. But if you want to share where you're at, I'd love to hear in the comments. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Just remember to enjoy the journey, my friend.